Hello, it's been so long since I've done a video. I just kind of wanted to get one out of the way because it's been written on my board for such a long time. So this is book 62 of 2020, Gut by Julia Enders. I wasn't lying when I said I was coming back, but then my laptop broke, so I've not been able to kind of like edit any videos or anything. It's still broke, but I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do the edit on YouTube and put the slicing stuff in. Anyway, let's do the book review because it's been so long coming. So this book was all about the kind of inner world of our guts, and kind of talking about like what goes on in the gut and the impact that has on your life and kind of stuff like that. So I listened to this book on audio. I think my overall impression of the book was that it was interesting to find out about the gut, but was perhaps because of the person that was narrating the audiobook, a lot of the humour in it kind of like fell flat. I've actually watched a TED talk of Julia Enders, and the way that she like delivers some of her lines, like they are quite humorous in a dry kind of way. I think she's German maybe, so obviously the sense of humour is slightly different, but on the audio it just did not work at all. It was just not funny at all. I feel like she was the one that was narrating it, I don't know, but yeah, it just felt completely flat. It was like when you kind of feel like it's supposed to be funny and it wasn't funny. So that was the only thing that kind of put me off about it. I can't even remember how many stars I gave this actually. I think I probably gave it about 2. I'm also really ill, so apologies for any kind of coughing or like nasally kind of sounding that you can probably hear. Anyway, I'm completely unprepared and out of practice with these, but anyway, so the first kind of thing that it starts talking about, which I found quite interesting, was the communication between our sphincters. We have an inner sphincter and an outer sphincter. And basically what happens is, and I suppose this is what Enders is really good at kind of describing, like what actually happens in a kind of humorous way. She basically says that like it pushes a little bit of poo out of the inner sphincter to basically be like, is it an appropriate time to come out now and have a poo? Or, you know, is it not a good time? If it's not a good time, the inner sphincter will like suck it back up. Whereas if it's an appropriate time, the outer sphincter will open and it'll kind of like come through and you'll have a poo. So it was interesting to find out about the sphincters because I didn't really know about them in that much detail. She starts talking about how enzymes in saliva break down food and protect from bacteria, and is also kind of like a pain relief, which I feel like I knew already because obviously like animals like lick their young, don't they, for like pain relief and stuff like that, and the clean and stuff, so obviously there must be enzymes in there. It's interesting actually because I teach about the fight-flight response, and we talk about how in fight-flight you don't have any saliva anymore because you don't need it, because the enzymes that are in it break down the food, which is for digestion, which you don't need to be doing when you're trying to run away or fight a predator. So I think from being reminded of that in this book, I've incorporated that into my teaching, so that was quite useful. Talks as well about the structure of the stomach, which again, I feel like I knew this stuff already, but it was a good reminder. So it talks about how the way that the stomach is, it's slightly off center, and you've got like a little air bubble at the top, and this air bubble basically prevents you from vomiting when there's any pressure. Like for example, when you're laughing, if there was no kind of air bubble there, then every time you laughed or like moved your kind of stomach area, then you would vomit everywhere, the contents of your stomach. But because it's like slightly, if you imagine what the stomach's like, I'll draw you a little diagram there. It's slightly like off pieced, and so that is useful for not vomiting everywhere. And then Enders goes into kind of a discussion about stools. I don't know if you've ever seen like a stool chart. I've seen one, I can't remember how I've seen one, maybe in biology or something. This is all basically GCSE biology, so if you remember your GCSE biology, it's just kind of a recap of all the kind of stuff, but I suppose if you can't remember any of it, it's reminding it. So she's talking about stool samples and what they mean and like descriptions of them and stuff. There's a very heavy description of all these different stools, which I was listening to it going, I'm not very interested in this stool description, to be honest. Then she starts talking about the process of reflux. vomiting, constipation, and what they all are and how they happen and stuff, which again, you know, basic stuff, obvious stuff. Then she starts talking about the benefit of a squat loo. Again, I'm already aware of this. I had a friend who actually had a squat loo. He used to tell me about it all the time, about how amazing it was. But if you look on diagrams on Google, the way that you sit on a toilet currently, Victorian toilets, the way that your legs are, if you put your feet flat on the floor, it actually compresses your like anus. Is that the pipe coming out of your anus? It compresses it so that you end up having to put more pressure on, and then you're more likely to get kind of hemorrhoids. Now, if you elevate your legs up a little bit, so say you put your feet on tiptoes, which is what I do when I'm going to the toilet because I know this stuff, it will tilt your pelvis a little bit and it will make an easier passage out of you so that you don't exert too much force and blow your capillaries in your bum area and get, you know, piles. So get a squat loo, it'll be very helpful for you. You'll find it a lot easier to go to the toilet. Enders also talks about the passage of food through the guts, talking as well about the cleanliness of the small intestine, and that actually that rumbling noise that you hear is not actually a sign that you're hungry. It's a sign that you have left enough time for your small intestine to think that it's not going to expect any food, so that it can clean the small intestines. So it's kind of correlating with the fact that you've not eaten for a while, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're hungry. It means that it's just cleaning things. And I repeat that fact to a lot of people, so that's one that's stuck in the memory since reading this. She also talks about the function of the villi. Again, it's GCSE stuff, like we all learn about villi. I always want to do like a Mexican wave to show like what villi are like. That's what's going on in my head when I think of villi. So she was talking a lot about that as well and what that does. And also talking about how the gut can be responsible for our mood and can explain like the connection between if you have like irritable bowel syndrome, why you're more likely to get like depression or anxiety or something like that. Essentially, you I've just skipped something on my board. Also explains the gut feeling that you get. There's like a connection between the mind and the gut. There is actually a lot of neurons in your gut that are very similar to ones that are in your brain. So the gut feeling has some kind of, you know, scientific basis. But Enders talks about the importance of microbes. You know, your gut is a living organism, and it's got lots of kind of like, you know, you've got healthy gut flora that is kind of going on down there that's actually really useful for keeping you healthy and keeping you in a good mood and stuff. And that if all you eat is kind of like junk food or stuff like that, that you're probably going to feel pretty crap. It's interesting actually, because I really cleaned out my diet a couple of years ago after I read Aubrey Marcus's Something the Day, it was called. It was a really, really good book. Had a lot of stuff about nutrition, very kind of researched, and lots of scientific articles in it and things. And since reading that, I probably cleaned out my diet and started to eat kind of like things that were better for my gut, and started to drink like prebiotic drinks and things, which Enders talks about as being very good for your gut flora and stuff as well. And so when I did that, it's not necessarily that I felt kind of immediately better or anything, but what I did notice was that the days, so what I do is I go shopping and I get like all fruit and veg and like healthy stuff and like all my kind of drinks and stuff. Or I used to just get like one pack, so I'd get like 7, and I'd get like fruit for my breakfast and stuff. But by like the end of a week, I'd be running out. But I didn't necessarily need to go shopping because I still had bread and I still had stuff I could eat for tea. So I kind of wouldn't eat as healthily the second week. And in that second week, I would notice that my mood would be different and that I wouldn't be as happy as what I was the first week. And so I noticed like changes from not having all the good things that I'd put in my diet. Similarly, if I eat out, I notice changes because I'm not in control as much of what I'm eating. I'm not getting the right balance of vegetables and fruits to like meat and carbs and things like that. Or like if I don't know, I'd skipped a meal because I was too busy or something, or I'd wasn't hungry or whatever. So I was trying not to cough, and then it just bopped out. Oh my god. Or what, I was thinking of something else then as well. Or if I eat like some junk food, like, I don't know, I don't really eat takeaways, but say for this particular reason I might have had something that was takeout, something like a pizza or something, I probably noticed the change in my mood afterwards. And so it's obviously linked to this kind of idea of the gut flora and how healthy it is. And there's also talks about how you can have too clean environments that actually are detrimental to you, and that you actually do need some kind of dirt, you know, all this kind of like sanitation that people are doing in terms of like coronavirus and things. You're affecting your guts because you need some microbes to go in there for it to be kind of like healthy. And they talked about how if you have a C-section when you're born, it leads to you having issues with allergies, which the too clean environment does as well. Which probably explains why I'm allergic to everything, because my household growing up was very, very clean because my mum was obsessed with cleaning, and I'm literally allergic to like scents and everything. Perfume, I'll start sneezing and stuff, like, or I'll start coughing, or, you know, whatever. So completely understand it. But with the C-sections, basically when the baby's coming out of the birth canal and goes through the woman's vagina, it picks up all the kind of like microbes that are there, and then that creates kind of like a better gut flora for the baby. So if you have a C-section, you don't obviously go through that passage, and then you end up having more allergies as you're older, as an adult, because you haven't, you know, built up that basic resistance from being born. I can't read my own writing. Essentially, this book was relatively informative, but it is basic biology. It is basic like stuff that's going on in your gut and your stools and stuff like that. So if you know nothing about it, then yeah, I would recommend it to listen to. But if if you've got like a GCSE level knowledge of biology, it's going to be too easy for you. You're going to know all the stuff already. I suppose it's just a good reminder of things. It was very, very much like a whistle-stop tour of different parts of the gut and what they do and stuff like that. So I think this is why I gave it 2 stars. And as I mentioned before, the delivery of it was a bit poor in the sense that the audio voice just fell flat a bit. I feel like it was somebody else that narrated it and not her, and maybe that was why that was the case. So there you have it. I've finally done a review, and it was probably shocking, but one more down and, you know, a million more to go.